morning, Leroy. Welcome to another edition of From the Pressbox.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm pretty good. As my grandma always used to. What's that?
Next week is Thanksgiving, man.
I know, right? I was going to say, as my grandma always used to say, I woke up this morning and my name wasn't in the obits, so it's a pretty good day. But it is Thanksgiving. Literally a week from today, we're going to be Thanksgiving Eve. You're going to be beginning your fasting and so on. Are you all staying local?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Do you cook or does your mom cook?
So, Christy...
Well, meaning, is Christy cooking or is your mom cooking? Because we know it's not you.
There will be 2 Thanksgiving dinners, one at my parents' who live about 15 miles west of us, and then we'll have one at our house as well. Just because my wife and kids like a whole lot of different foods than what my parents like. Mm-hmm. And so they'll have like 2 separate, I don't know. I just go where they tell me to. As long as there's deviled eggs and cranberry sauce, I'm good to go, man.
Paul says 5 points from last week that I rewatched. So I don't know if he's going to be bringing us points or what, but while he brings those, how about we recap our pick contest as we do that? But before we do that, coming up on the show today, we get to talk about, he is bringing us his 5 points from what he missed. So we'll have to bring those here. So we'll get to Paul's 5 points. While he's typing those on the show today, we will recap a very sad end to the broadcasting football season for myself. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Northwestern has a new football coach officially. We'll talk about that. The Athletic earlier today released a fan survey for baseball. Leroy doesn't know them, but we're going to go through it and ask him the questions and see what he says about these and kind of see what I say as well. We'll have our logos, we'll have our play clocks, our drivers, and so much more. But first, let's recap the pick contest. Leroy, I've got good news and bad news. Which would you like first? From the pick contest.
Bad news.
The bad news is that you did not win this week.
What the hell's the good news?
You didn't lose either.
Oh, okay.
It was a 5-5 tie last week. To recap the picks, Leroy went with the Cougs against Fairdale, and Fairdale came away with the victory. We'll talk about that in a few moments. We both correctly predicted Alabama to beat Kentucky. We both were wrong in predicting Northwestern to beat Wisconsin. We both were wrong in picking Western Kentucky to beat New Mexico State. We both were wrong in predicting the Bengals to beat the Texans. Okay, so there's a stretch of bad. We both were right with the Bears beating the Panthers and Appalachian State winning as well. We both were right with the Niners defeating the Jags. And then where we split and ended up tying 5-5 is Leroy went with Michigan. I went with Penn State. I went with Missouri. Leroy went with Tennessee. We ended up tied at 5-5. Your overall points, I am winning 71-54. Okay, let's get through what Paul says, because Paul he rewatched. So he says, first off, Ron Washington will be missed. He is the Angels' new manager, right?
I'm excited to see what he does for the Angels. He was, what did he say today? He said, we're going to run that division. You can bet on it or something like that. And Angels fans were like, we've heard this before.
Mm-hmm. Paul's second point is that he didn't agree with the logos. I'm sorry. But I will say that I gave them to my co-host of our Bengals podcast before the show today. He had not seen them. He got 3 out of 3. So I can't, I don't know. Paul says he didn't get a single one of the logos. Number 3, Paul says you die on a lot of hills, Leroy. I don't remember which hill you died on last week. But number 4, since the Bengals will easily handle the Texans. Yeah, I thought so too. Paul. I thought so as well. And then number 5, he says, even though I got it right, the last driver picture Leroy showed had an IndyCar right beside the guy. Luckily, you got it right. Maybe that's why I got it right. I don't really remember what the last guy was last week, or if you even might remember as well.
I'd have to look.
But let's start on a sour note or a sad note, and then we'll get better as the show goes on. Right?
Yep.
The Cougs lost, Leroy. The Cougs lost. The Cougs had their historic season, their second best program in the 50-year history of the program. ended
So
with a loss in the second round of the playoffs.
is it your fault that they lost?
Why would it be my fault?
Did you? Because sometimes I'll get people that will say stuff to me like somehow it's the broadcaster's fault that
Oh
that
no,
you guys
no,
lost the game.
yeah, no, no, I didn't get any of that. So I want to talk a little bit about what happened with it. Is for one, it was a great atmosphere again. They did their second annual Cougar Walk, which was really cool. And what they did this week that was really cool is that they had 3 police officers in full uniform lead them on their walk through the tailgate. And they were all alums of the school, and all I think 3 were Hall of Famers, football Hall of Famers as well. So it was really cool seeing them lead, and they're in full, stoic mode, and the team's right behind them, and so on. And Grayson County, they get the ball. They always, if they win the toss, they always receive. That's just the philosophy. They want to get the ball. They want to score. Fairdale, the other team, onside kicks it. It hits off the Grayson County kid, goes up into the air. Fairdale gets it. They get the ball. They drive down. They score. Grayson County then goes 3 and out. Fairdale gets it, drives down, scores. It's 13-0. We haven't even breathed, and we're like, great, this is fantastic.
Is there a point where you look at your color guide and you're like,
yeah? Well, we were all like, oh crap, dang, this stinks. So then Grayson gets the ball and they're starting to drive, and this is kind of the moment where we looked at one another and we're like, yeah, here we go. Okay, just took a little bit, settled in. It's 13-0. This point, there was 4 minutes left in the first quarter. There's a ton of time left. You're at home. You're fine. They're driving. And then early on in the second quarter, their quarterback goes on a run. He rolls out, has the hole, hits it, runs upfield, and gets annihilated. Helmet-to-helmet hit. It wasn't a dirty hit by any means. And then he falls down, and his head hits the turf, and he doesn't get up. And immediately, the coaches and the trainers run out there, and for a period, he's not getting up. We don't have anything to do, and then we see them run over, and they're getting out the screwdrivers and such, to take off his face mask. And immediately we're thinking, okay, this is serious. There was an ambulance at the game. They bring the ambulance out onto the field, and this is the starting quarterback. And they put him on the flat board, on the backboard. They put him in the ambulance, and they take him away. And you can see the reaction. We are very careful because we live stream the games as well, that we don't show any injuries. We don't have the ability to do instant replay, but we're not showing the huddle where they're injured or anything like that, because my philosophy is these kids are 16 years old. We don't need to show them in their worst. That's just my philosophy. I'm not going to move from that. But you saw the quarterback's dad get out there, and you could tell immediately something was seriously wrong. They take him away on the ambulance. They put in the backup quarterback, and a couple of plays later, the backup quarterback gets hurt.
Oh my gosh.
And the backup quarterback was only hurt for a couple of weeks. Yeah, and the backup quarterback was hurt for a couple of plays, came back in. The backup quarterback had taken maybe 12 snaps all year, and it was just one of those things that everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Then late in the first half, backup quarterback throwing to the star running back. Not a great throw. Star running back goes up to catch it and gets speared. Again, not a dirty play by any means. It was football. He went up into the air, got hit in the back. He left the game, didn't return it. He tried to return, didn't have it. So it was just one of those things that everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. We ended up finding out in the second half that the quarterback had just a bad concussion. So it wasn't when you see somebody get taken off on an ambulance, you're thinking the worst. And he was fine. He was watching the game and so on. But it was one of those things that it really hurt that you had such a great season. And it was just the reason that they lost in this game was just because now Fairdale, the other team, played really well. Not taking anything against them, but it was just everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Size-wise, you guys match up all right?
They were a lot faster. It was just they were bigger athletes. I don't know that it was just a different kind of football, and I just hated that it went to that point. And I felt bad for the kids that it just and like you said, how do you? I don't know how you keep on playing. This is not, you getting out there and getting hurt, or me getting out there and getting hurt as the bench warmer. This is your starting quarterback who's had a great season. So it's just it was sad.
Every time somebody talks about the ambulance coming out on the field, all it makes me think of is Madden 95, where the ambulance would come out onto the field, get the injured
Forgotten seeing the
player,
videos
and
about that.
drive right off. And it would run
It
over.
is.
If there was people all on the ground, ambulance would run right over everybody coming off the field.
It was the. I guess it was the third time I've had an ambulance come on a field during a football game. And it was the fourth time that it was an injury that an ambulance was needed. The other time they couldn't get an ambulance, so they ended up just putting him into the back of a car and taking him that way.
Oh
I run. Yes, it was. They finally got to the point where they're like, "Who has an SUV? Okay, yep, let's just put you in the back of the car and let's take you to the hospital and go that way because the hospital wasn't too far."
Yeah.
But it was just and those are always, as a broadcaster, since this podcast is about that, are always incredibly difficult because we don't know anything. We don't. I don't know.
Well, we have guidelines for the racetrack. We have guidelines for the racetrack when there's an accident over what we're allowed to say, what we're not allowed to say. When can we bring updates? When can we not bring updates? Things like that. So, especially for drag strip racing, there is a lot of guidelines as far as what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, as per just to keep the crowd from getting completely uneasy.
Paul also writes in here and he says, also, my high school, which has never won a regional championship, won. We all know that, but they won the first round of the playoffs last week, 35-12. So we need to pick the second round of the playoffs. Portal Panthers versus Telfair. Okay, maybe later on. Well, later on we'll throw that in and pick that at the end. Paul says that's bad. Basically, Jets fans, when Rodgers went down, starting quarterback gets hurt, there's no hope, and it knocks the wind out of the team. Now, the team responded really well. The team responded as well as you potentially could have, but it was one of those things that it was at that moment you realized it's not their night. Portal is at home. So because of that, Leroy, I'm picking Portal since it's at home in the playoffs, right? Or are you going to pick Telfair?
I'll pick Telfair.
Okay. I'm picking Paul. I don't ever go with Paul Reeves' team. My goodness. I must be feeling generous. Then the other big news as far as this podcast goes, I don't really know that it's big news across anything else, but Northwestern removed the interim tag from their head college football coach. Seems well deserved.
David
For me being a very much of an outsider.
Right.
It seems well deserved.
David Braun joined Northwestern as a defensive coordinator. He was the NDSU head coach last year and became he was their interim head coach to start off this year after Fitzgerald got fired. That team won one game last year. And then after the scandal, they lost a ton of their starters. David Braun has taken that team to be 5-5. They're only a game out from Iowa from first place in the Big Ten West to find out who's going to get smoked by either Ohio State or Michigan. And it's one of those things where when you can take a program that's like that and have everyone buy in, and you can tell they bought in. I mean, they crushed Wisconsin. And you can say, yeah, Wisconsin has been playing well. That's still a big game. That's still a big deal for those kids to be able to pick up a win like that. They're one game out of a bowl game with games against Purdue and Illinois left. And if he can get them to a bowl game in his first year, that's a pretty big deal for a team that only won one game last year. So I'm pretty excited to see what he can do with the interim taken off as far as recruiting and other things like that. We're excited.
Me being the outsider, just to play devil's advocate, is you've seen this before where the interim coach comes in, does better, gets hired, and you realize maybe we should have gone through that search. Do you wish they would have still gone through a search? And if he would have gotten the job, you'd have been okay with it then? Or are you still okay with giving him the job before the season's done?
Yeah, I would have liked them to still go through the search and gone through the whole off season or gone through the whole season with the interim tag first, only because I don't know how well he can recruit. And I know we can talk about that all we want to, and that could be a whole conversation in itself, but because recruiting at any level is hard, but especially recruiting at Vanderbilt and Northwestern and some of these smaller schools can be very difficult. So I would have liked to see what his plans were as far as recruiting goes to move forward, just because I don't know a whole lot about him as far as that aspect of it. But when you strictly take away just his field play and just the decisions that he's making on the football field, I've been very, very impressed with his calm, cool demeanor and his play calling and his clock management, which I'm a simple guy, man. I ain't looking for anything too crazy, run the ball when you're supposed to run the ball, pass the ball when you're supposed to pass the ball. And he's been doing all right on the field. But yeah, and it's going to get way tougher next year. And then obviously with all the new teams coming in and then getting rid of the division. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Paul does want to know too. He heard you say last week the basketball season is starting. Are you coaching this year? Paul is curious.
I am not coaching by any stretch of the imagination, Paul.
Those lucky kids.
I will stick with my headphones on, describing the action to those who are listening, and that's good enough.
Coaching on the headset, right?
Coaching. That's not the play I would have done.
Oh,
dude's won 84 games in the Apollo Conference, but what? Come on.
You only lost by 60 that one time. 2 points, right?
That's it. That was it.
Earlier today, I found it interesting that The Athletic, I subscribe to The Athletic. Leroy, are you a subscriber to The Athletic or not?
I've taken some time off of it. I will.
I didn't know you broke up with The Athletic.
I broke up with The Athletic for a little bit.
Oh wow. Okay.
A little vacation until.
Is everything okay? Like, are you two like?
No. Here's the deal, right? And I'm gonna sound really like.
Did they say something bad about one of your teams?
I'm going to sound really egotistical here, but there's not a single good Chicago team right now. And I really don't feel like reading The Athletic when there's not a single Chicago team that's playing decent right now. I'll wait till our teams start getting a little bit better and then I'll resubscribe.
Fair enough. So one of the things that I like that The Athletic does a lot is they do what they call fan surveys. I know like every year the Bengals do one and they ask a bunch of questions to Bengals fans about like, how confident are you in the future of the team? And it's interesting seeing them doing them every year to see how things change throughout it. So today, The Athletic released a fan survey. It might have been yesterday or this week or something. Released a fan survey to Major League Baseball fans that subscribe to The Athletic.
Okay.
So I'm going to go through here and ask. I took the survey earlier today, but we're going to kind of go through. Now, I didn't pull every question because some of the questions are you really needed to see it to answer it. Like one was, if you could have dinner with one player in baseball, who would you see? Who would you choose? Like that's kind of a loaded question with that. So instead I think they had 23 questions. This is probably about 15 of the 23 that I went through and do because I think it'll be good conversations for us. And you watching at home, Paul, I know you're a big baseball guy as well. I'm curious on your opinion with this as well. So Leroy, we'll start with the first one. Who is the best position player in baseball right now?
Best position player?
Correct. I know who I voted for in this. And I'll say who I voted for. It was Ronald Acuna. That's who I voted for as the best position player. Because they brought up the point, for you to do Ohtani, you're only doing Ohtani hitting. So you don't get Ohtani's pitching in this category.
Yeah, I was tossing around Soto for a little bit. But yeah, I think I'll go with Acuna as well. But yeah, Soto was kind of the guy that I was leaning towards. But yeah, I think Acuna's probably got him beat as far as defensively.
Who is the best starting pitcher in baseball right now? And see, this one for me was tough. Because I don't know that there is an obvious one. But
I'll go with Ohtani on this one.
You really?
Yeah.
And see, I went with Garrett Cole.
Okay.
For the Yankees. Yeah. I think he won the Cy Young earlier tonight. I think he's probably the best pitcher.
Blake Snell probably needs to be up there as well.
And I don't know that there's necessarily a wrong answer. Kenny agrees with me in saying Garrett Cole with that. Okay, this is an interesting one, Leroy. Shohei Ohtani signs where this offseason?
Unfortunately, the Dodgers.
And see, I voted, and I'm sorry, Paul, I don't necessarily love this, is the Braves.
Really?
Yes.
I don't see the Braves shelling out that much money for him. The Braves
and
are
Paul,
so the
I am
Braves are
very
so good at how they spend money.
and see Paul right on cue. Paul, I'm very interested. You're obviously more entwined in the Braves. Is that legit? Because I was reading some of that as well. And see, I hope that it's not like John says here, watch Ohtani be a Yankee or a Dodger.
I want to talk about the Yankees here. I want to talk about the Yankees here in a second after you finish your thought.
Okay. Are you going to rant again?
A little bit.
A little bit about the Yankees?
Yeah.
Okay. These next 4 you're supposed to rate them 1 to 5, meaning okay. 1 is the worst, 5 is great. Okay. Paul says he has interest. Braves didn't say they were, but I feel like it's one of those things. So if Shohei Ohtani comes to you and says, I'm interested, do you really tell him no? Like that's kind of what I'm like. I would love, Kenny says Seattle. I would really like that because I would like him to go to a team like that he could elevate. Because like him going to the Dodgers or him going to the Braves is just making a really good team and making them even better. Like I'd love to him go to, he's never going to be a Red, but someone like that, or like a Diamondback, or somewhere that it's like in that realm. His relationship with Ichiro. That's kind of interesting as well.
He doesn't want to go to a team that's rebuilding though, so it's gonna be one of the better teams that are in baseball
Kansas City
now, as far as
Detroit.
No, they got Jason Benetti, and that's all they get. That's all you get is Jason.
Great pickup though for Detroit. I love Jason Benetti.
100%.
Love Jason Benetti. For one, did you see the video of him doing impressions?
Yes.
Of like he did.
It was Droopy Dog, and then it was
Sean McDonough.
Yeah, and Jim Rome's was spot on.
Yes, it was really good.
Jim Rome's was spot on.
Really, really good. Okay, off topic. Okay, rate these 1 to 5. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best.
All right.
Rob Manfred as commissioner.
Oh.
How would you rate him from 1 to 5?
Oh, from 1 to 5?
Yes.
1 being best, 5 being worst.
Opposite.
5 being
1
best,
being the worst, 5 being the best. How would you rate Rob Manfred's job as commissioner? Paul says 5.
3.
That's what I gave him. I gave him a 3. I think he's done some good things, and I think he's done some not so great things.
I don't know how you can give him a 5, Paul.
Oh, okay. That's why Paul gives him a 1. I was gonna say I didn't think Paul was gonna give him a 5, knowing Paul being a baseball like homer and so on. Kenny says 4. I think 3. 3 is what I go with. Okay, again,
a low 3.
Same right, 1 to 5. Pitch clock rule in baseball. 1 being it's the worst, 5 being it's the best. And you already know what I gave this. Big old 5. Big old 5. If I could have given it a 6, I would have given it a 6.
See, I'm going to sound like a homer again, but I got to go with a 3. There are parts of it I really like, and there are parts of it that I absolutely hate.
Like today, I think it's good where it is. Like, I don't want it to change. Like they had said that they were potentially going to bring it down 2 seconds. But I love it. Okay, you okay?
Yep.
Deep breath. Kumbaya. Deep breath. Deep breath. Banning the shift. 1 through 5.
2.
You know what I gave it?
It was 8.
5.
I meant 4 then, because I actually like that. Sorry, I got my stuff mixed up again. 4. I actually like that.
Yeah, I would have. I was going back and forth between a 4 and a 5. It doesn't surprise me that Paul says 1 on this. But then again, one of the things why we're pro at Leroy, we're both left-handed. And it's helped lefties the most.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably part of why we're pro it, because it's helped lefties. I like that they've done this. The larger bases and the pickoff rule.
Oh, I hate them both. So I'm going to go with
Really?
yes.
You hate the larger bases?
Yes.
What did they do to you?
I don't think that they helped as much as what they wanted them to. And
Stolen base numbers went up. See, here's why just to play devil's advocate with you.
Yeah.
Is they could have made that change and not told fans, and fans would have never known.
Yeah. So they should have, because I tell you what, I think the whole thing is stupid. See, Paul agrees. Paul agrees. It's stupid.
So you're giving it a 1?
I
gave it a 4. I gave it a 4. I liked the increase in the running game.
The thing with the pickoff rule is these guys are going to catch on to the system. And some of these guys already have.
And I don't disagree, Paul, that players would have known. And they absolutely would have known.
And with that,
Paul's even downgrading it to a -1.
With that being said, with that whole situation, it's one of those things where I just don't like. I'm not a big fan of, and I know it's all about speeding up the game, blah blah blah, but limiting the number of pitching visitors, limiting the number of throws over and everything. We're giving more kudos to the offense. We're giving the offense more, and I don't necessarily think the offense needs to get better.
You understand why?
I do. I don't agree with it. I understand why they're doing it. But baseball needs to stop.
Does it, though?
See, you and I disagree on this. At some point, we will appeal to the casual fans so much that it's going to tick off the people that are actually going to the games.
Will it? Like, in all seriousness, like for you and for Paul and for myself, we're baseball diehards. Is there really anything baseball could do that would stop you from cheering for the Cubs? Barring something that just wouldn't happen.
No, but I mean...
And see, that's kind of where that's what, just to kind of play devil's advocate with you, is that you are going to watch the game no matter what. Your son, they're trying to get him interested. Why did the base get bigger? To avoid injury? How did that help avoid injury? I think that the biggest reason they made it bigger is to try and increase the stolen base numbers. And like you said, Paul, stolen bases are exciting, and I love seeing Acuna do it. And him making those bases just ever so slightly bigger, these guys are so fast, it made those plays even closer and increased the ability and the odds in that.
Kenny says baseball is trying to save face and get fans back in the stands, so appealing them in any way, they will do it. You want to know how to appeal me? Make it where I can actually watch my team play baseball, where I'm not flipping between 800 channels to be able to watch my team play. Make it where I'm not sitting there living in Springfield, Illinois, and I can't watch my Cubs play. Make it like that, and you'll see attendance go up. I am so sick of turning on my TV and not being able to watch my baseball team play. But you better believe if I want to watch any other team play baseball, I pay my $60 a month and I'm home free. But I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that living in Illinois, I can't watch the Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers, or I think that's
White Sox.
Or White Sox. But like if you live in Iowa, you can't get any of those teams or the Twins or any of those teams. The blackout rules are stupid. I'm irritated because we fixed every single thing except for what the fans want.
Yeah, you're not going to hear me disagree with that. Let's go on to these next before you. Do you need to take a walk?
No, I'm all right. But like. My frustration.
You're lucky you don't have hair, because I think it would be gone right now. You'd be just like.
My frustration with it is they're like, oh, look, we're doing this to bring the fans back. All we want is the archaic blackout rules lifted. The
NFL did it.
Like, you sit there and you're like, well, I don't understand why fans aren't watching. Make the game shorter. Great. Awesome. I'm paying the same amount of money for a shorter game. And guess what? I'm still listening to it on the radio because it's the only thing that I can listen to because I can't watch the game on TV. That's stupid. Because they think that I should be able to make it to Chicago every day to drive the 3.5 hours every day to watch it. The whole reason for the blackout rule was to get people to go. But I don't live in Chicago. I live 3.5 hours away. That's not feasible.
You know, I'm the same way. You're not going to get me. I mean, I live 2.5 hours away from Cincinnati, and it's the same thing with that. And I don't disagree with Paul says here either. Channels need to quit holding out for more money every flipping year. You know, that continues going on. Let's get, because I got a couple more of these too that we want to get to. This is a multiple choice on this. Yep. Leroy, are you in favor of the automatic strike zone? Yes, for all instances. Yes, for challenges only, or no?
Yes, for challenges only.
I agree. I think that would be good. Because there are, I mean, you look at these, and I mean, you saw in the World Series, wasn't there one where a guy missed one?
Yep.
I mean, most of these guys are really good, but there are the occasional egregious misses. And I think Paul's in a challenge. And the best part about those challenges is they can be done super quick.
Well, and I'll tell you, we've had this conversation before that they used the auto strike zone when we went down to Bradenton to go watch the Marauders play. And it was the first time I had dealt with an automatic strike zone. And I was a little bit annoyed by it for the first couple minutes. And I was like, wait a minute, this isn't bad at all. It's the same thing where where the NFL has now, come up with the overturn before they review it. Like if they see something and I like that too, where we're not sitting there spending 15 minutes waiting to figure out whether or not it's pass interference or not. They can look up in the booth and say, hey, no, that's. No, Angel Hernandez has not been let go. They just limited his games and what he was able to call, at which he sued, by the way. And then they were like, dude, you suck. That's why we didn't pick you.
Leroy, what's the ideal size of the playoffs? 8, 10, or 12?
10.
So you want it to be like, what, I guess 11 to 19?
Yep.
So 12 is too many.
I'm all right with 12. I am not a big fan of the long time off in between. I just am not a big fan of that. It punishes teams.
If they kept it at 10, would you want the wild card game to go to 3-game set?
3, not 1. 3. Yeah,
I think that's your best scenario. Is 10 and the 2 wild card teams play a 3-game series.
10 teams make it in. That's 1 out of every 3. That's a decent number for the playoffs. And any team, the goal is the playoffs. We joke about wanting to go to the World Series, but you cannot go to the World Series if you don't make the playoffs. And we figured out that the teams that get hot right at the right time, those are the teams that do it. But that whole week off, we've seen it. There's only been one team that has overcome that. Only one team overcame in the last couple of years that's overcome the week off. And if I'm upper management, I'm screaming at Manfred saying we've got to do something different because it's punishing the teams that there's no motivation to do well. I don't need a week off.
One of the ideas that I had heard, and I've always been intrigued by this, is I think they talked about this during COVID, the COVID playoffs, that they do a draft. They do a draft. And the number 1 seed gets to pick who they want to play.
Who they want to play?
And the number 2 seed then gets to play. Like, how awesome would that be, though? Like, can you imagine the disrespect of, like, the Braves, they pick the Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks go in there like, these MFers. Like, they think they're worthy 8. Like, that would be... And who would, like, get all of the GMs in a room or all of the owners in a room and broadcast that live?
Stream it, make it a real show.
Oh, ratings would be
Reds,
awesome.
We want the Reds.
And I want to see Bob Castellini over there like, oh, it's going down now. Or David Bell. Like, would it happen? I can't imagine.
No, they never
I think it would.
But I would just love it for the drama of
oh yes. It'd be
we
great.
were 6-0 against the Brewers. Milwaukee, bring us. We want Milwaukee.
Leroy.
Yeah.
Expansion to 32, yay or nay?
Yay. Yay. I'm always for expansion. I know it's watering. Listen, y'all got rid of like 12 minor league teams. No, more than 12 minor league teams. More. Bring me more. Help these smaller cities
rest
out.
in peace, Lexington Legends.
Yep. And I hate it. I wasn't a fan of the trim downs for these minor league teams because, listen, more baseball is great. And more baseball at smaller places that can't go to the big games, that can't go, Montana, North Dakota, some of these places that you can't go.
Okay.
I'm all for it.
What two cities?
Nashville and either Portland or Charlotte.
And see, I went with the latter two, Portland and Charlotte.
Yep.
Were the two that I went with in that. This question was interesting. Kenny says Vegas.
A's.
Vegas apparently is getting the A's.
The A's are already going there.
So that was one of the questions in there that they asked about, but I felt like it was funny that they asked, they're like, how do you feel about that move? Like excited. There were like 5 points, and the middle one was indifferent. And I was like, I'm indifferent. I don't really care about the A's. The NBA this year, and it might have started last year, I can't really remember, started an in-season tournament. Should MLB start something like that?
I'm not a big fan of the NBA tournament. I mean, what's the point? I mean, what are they playing for? I mean, they're really not playing for anything. I wouldn't mind an MLB tournament if they're playing for something, say, home field advantage for the World Series, say something like that. But it would need to be. I don't know how you'd be able to do that with series being 3, and basketball is easy because you just do one at a time. But I don't know how you'd be able to make that work. But if they're going to have something, I want a legit target of what they're playing for. No, as I'll be honest, I don't know what this NBA in tournament thing is. It just feels like it's just a
money
way
grab
to sell merch. That's what I feel like. It's a way for them to sell merch.
Leroy, one team that will win a World Series before 2030.
One team that will win a World Series before 2030.
I said the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
It might be a cop-out answer, but I think it's an easy answer. And Kenny is right. That's the exact reason that they wanted to do. The NBA wanted to copy what soccer has done overseas with those in-season tournaments. Or even MLS.
It didn't make it any better, though.
I like Kenny's answer here.
Yeah, there you go.
I like Kenny's answer.
I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Mariners.
Really? Okay. You heard it here first if you go back. One team that won't win a World Series before 2030.
The Mets.
Oh, the Mets?
The Mets.
Clearly the Chicago Cubs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, I'm going to go cop-out. Royals and Tigers. Oh, I see. Oakland is not a bad one, but Oakland, we've also seen them. They've at least been decent before. Mick says Yankees. Paul says Tigers. Paul says A's. I love that these are all AL teams. All AL teams. So let's get an NL team that won't win it before 2030.
Okay.
Gosh, see, that's the thing. The NL is just overall so much better. Like, I could say the Pirates. But I don't know. Marlins, Kenny says. Paul, I was saying any, but I just said NL just because everybody else was saying, everyone else was saying AL teams. Paul says Mets won't win it before 2050. Mick's guess is probably the right one.
I got you, Paul. I got you. Mets going to Met, just like the Jets are going to Jet.
Okay. The last one, Leroy.
Yep.
A non-playoff team that will make the playoffs this year.
A non-playoff team that will make the playoffs this year.
I'll be the homer. Cincinnati Reds.
Boy, and I will too. I'm going to say Cubs. I think the Cubs make the playoffs this next year.
Yeah, I think it's the Cincinnati Reds that make the playoffs next year. And it could be, I mean, heck, that could be the division race.
Fine with me.
Reds Cubs.
Fine with me. I love when the Reds and the Cubs are good.
Kenny
love it.
Says Yankees. Mixes Guardians. That's not a bad one.
That's a good.
I think that a lot of that will go with Vogt, how good of a manager he is.
What about the Padres? Are they in full tear everything up rebuild?
Ooh, how about Paul? Angels.
Yeah, I thought about the Angels.
Who did the Padres hire as their manager again? Or have they hired one?
I don't think they've hired one yet. The Marlins just hired.
No, Ron Washington's the Angels.
No, Angels hired.
Yeah, because he said, He said Angels, why not? And then Ron Washington.
Yeah.
I don't know that the Padres have hired a manager now that I'm thinking about it.
No, I know the Mets or the Marlins just hired Schumacher.
Well, that was last year because he went manager of the year.
Oh, what?
Yeah. Yeah, they have not hired a manager yet. Vogt is the Guardians manager, Paul. Yeah, Skip Schumacher was the manager of the Marlins, and he won manager of the year this year, Leroy.
How do you win manager of the year over the D-backs?
Because it's voted on before the playoffs end.
Okay.
Kenny says, who's this year's Diamondbacks? Reds?
Angels.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that there's a list of, can the Angels do it without Ohtani, though?
Well, they haven't been able to do it with him, so.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I thought it was an interesting discussion, though. I always like those because the Athletic asks some really good questions in there. And I think it brings some decent conversation to there, even if Leroy and I disagree on some.
Can I rant about the Yankees for a second?
Yes, and then it's time for logos. Or do you want to save that for an off my chest?
Can I save it for an off my chest?
Well, you can do an off my chest right now while I make the logos harder.
All right, so Giancarlo Stanton, Brian Cashman, the GM for the Yankees, was talking about Giancarlo Stanton, and he said something. I don't have the quote in front of me. I should have written it down, and I didn't. Said something basically to the effect of, well, we know he's going to be hurt for part of the year. We just have to deal with that. Clearly, it's part of his game. Well, Giancarlo Stanton's agent didn't take too kindly to that comment, and basically said, look, because clearly when you come to New York, you have to have Teflon because it's just an insult. They're just coming at you in the on-season and in the off-season. The big thing is the agent for Stanton is also the agent for Yamamoto, who is the pitcher from Japan that everybody wants, that apparently the Yankees are really in on. But the agent for both of them told everyone, told other agents to tell their guys to stay away from the Yankees. So it'll be interesting to see how these agents, whether they have a pull on this, whether they have whether they get together and say, yeah, you're right. You know what? We're tired of I understand it's fact. You don't say it though. You don't say it. I'm sorry. You don't. Not as a GM. There's certain things you just don't say. We all know he's going to get hurt. That's not the point of it. The point of it is that think about if you're like the player or the agent, and your boss is like, yeah, he's going to show. I mean, he's not going to show up to work today anyway. I mean, he's going to miss half the year because he's sick. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of, and you know me, if you follow this podcast for a while, I'm not big on the whole social media, blanking your social media page when you're upset with your team. I think that's stupid too. But I'm just intrigued to see whether or not this has an impact on other players and other agents as far as whether or not they gather together to say, look, we're not tolerating that anymore. We're not going to the Yankees. We're not going there.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. Brian Cashman, Kentucky's own too. He's a Kentuckian, from Lexington, I believe.
I never had a problem with Cashman. I just think sometimes he just talks just to talk.
Speaking of, what NFL player just did that? Was it George Pickens?
That deleted all of their social media?
It's Stephon Diggs. Wasn't it Stephon Diggs?
Yeah.
Diggs did it the other night because his brother made some comment or something like that. How about we cue the music
Yeah, go ahead.
for a little bit of Leroy's logos? It's everyone's favorite segments.
I swear, Sam.
College logos.
2 weeks in a row now you've done this stupid.
Leroy had been rolling, hitting over 400. Now he's hitting 393. He's come back down to earth.
2 weeks
Leroy,
like
you are 2 for your last 12 in Leroy's logos after you were playing really well. So if you've never played this, but see, hey, Mick is watching, and Mick will tell you that I gave him last week's, and he got all 3 of them right. So you can't be that mad. He got all 3 of them right, and tonight he got 2 out of the 3. So remember, if you're playing along, you've turned the comments off, right?
Uh-huh.
Have you? Or are you saying that and you're going to cheat off of Paul Reeves here? Not that that's going to help you, but Paul says we're going to... Okay, Leroy. 1, 2, or 3.
See, I was all being nice and stuff, and I haven't had any luck with this. I'm going weird again and starting 3.
Number 3. Don't you just love the music?
Uh-huh.
Number 3, Leroy. What college is this? I mean, there's a big old hit there.
Is that UAB? I'm going to go with UAB.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
That is Binghamton.
It's who?
Binghamton.
You be pulling out some alternate logos and stuff just to freaking make things difficult.
That's Binghamton. Binghamton. Let's see what the comments say here as I got to catch up here. John says Butte. Paul says I'm pulling deep into the BS. Now, I will say this, Leroy, to make you feel better. You know, I like to go easy, medium, hard. That was your hard. You went hard first.
Nice.
So would you like 1 or 2?
Go with 1.
1. Number 1. Come on, you got this. This one goes out to the Cougs.
Yeah. That East Carolina? That's my final answer.
Sorry. That is Chicago State. I was hoping that the Chicago would help you there with it being an Illinois school. Felt like that was one that I could have helped you there. Okay, so you ready for your final one?
Yep.
I'm going to make you feel better now. Make you feel better here on this one. Am I not?
Am I overthinking this?
I don't know. Are you?
Rhode Island.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not. I'm telling you. It's like you flipped the switch and went all freaking crazy over the last month, man.
So that's your answer? You're correct. That is Rhode Island. That is Rhode Island. And listen, Paul and John both got Rhode Island as well. So Leroy, what is the theme this week? Chicago State, Rhode Island, and Binghamton. What is the theme on this week? And I will say this, because I'm feeling nice, Paul and John, you can, and I love that we got Paul and John. Where's Ringo? Where's Ringo and George? Yes. Because I'm feeling nice, Paul and John, there's almost no chance you can get this theme. This theme is directed towards you, Mr. Clamola. Again, Chicago State, Rhode Island, and Binghamton.
They're all school. Well, no, I never lived out in Rhode Island. I was trying to think if they were all schools and places I've lived before. Where's Binghamton located at?
New York? It's in the Northeast. Maine? Somewhere in the Northeast. You still don't see the comments, do you? Or do you see the comments now? You do not? I will say Paul Reeves is very close. Don't look. He's close.
I'm not. Come on now. Chicago State, Binghamton.
Chicago State. Rhode Island.
Are they all teams that will play Northwestern in basketball this year?
Yes. Look at him go.
Yes.
All teams on Northwestern's basketball schedule this year. So Paul guessed they all beat Northwestern. Which I will admit, that was a theme I was going to do this week, is all the FCS teams that Northwestern has lost to. But it's only been
lengthy
3.
List, my friend.
It's only been 3. And I've already used 2 of them in logos, so I couldn't use that. But look at you, 2 out of 4. 2 out of 4 this week, so you weren't too bad. You can't complain that much.
It's been hard, man. It's been hard.
Well, at least you got Rhode Island and you got the theme. It's good. I'm pulling up our play clock, but we'll get ready. While I pull up our play clock, would you like to ask or answer first this week?
I will answer first this week, my friend.
Maybe. It's loading. At some point, it'll load. Okay, you said you want to answer first?
Yep.
They have been hard, Paul says. Rhode Island was super easy. Well, see, I had to, because like the other ones on there, I can't use the Big Ten school because there's no fun in that. And then there were a couple that would have been really hard for you. But I wasn't sure if you were going to get it with it being the schedule or not. Okay. Leroy, during the Bengals game on Sunday, Mick, who was watching earlier, I don't know if he's still in there. There was a play, and I can't remember whether it was the Bengals were on defense or on offense. But there was a play near the end zone where a play happened, and there was pass interference called in the end zone. But then they changed the call and picked up the flag because the ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage. Should a tipped ball negate defensive pass interference?
No, because the intent is still there. I'm not a big fan of on those kind of penalties. Somebody said in one of the games I watched this weekend that it was hockey. They lifted the penalty because they didn't gain an advantage from it, but the intent was still there, and the hit still happened. And because of that, no, I'm not a big fan of lifting them. It's like when the team scores and they don't call the penalty because the team scores. Now, if a team chooses to decline, that's one thing, but I'm not a big fan of lifting them before, just because of the play ending up turning out the way that it does. Pass interference is pass interference. That's why we can choose to decline it or accept it.
I'm ready.
All right. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this beforehand, but the Cincinnati Bengals, offense, defense, special teams, coaching, grade them at this point in the season right now.
Oh, gosh. This is not last week's game. This is the season as a whole, correct?
As of right now.
Okay. So I'm going to grade. See, it's tough with the offense because you want to almost grade on a curve because they had the Burrow injury. I'm going to go like a C+ for the offense. And I'd honestly go the same thing for the defense. I'm going to go C for the defense because they've been so up and down. Special teams, I'd go a solid B+, A-. They've been pretty good. They've had some bad moments, but they've been pretty good. And coaching, I'd give like a C+, B- in that realm as well. I think that it was such a rough start to the season, and so much of that has been solidified around the Burrow injury, but I think you're starting to see some things turn around. Let's see what Mick says. Offense B-, defense C+, special teams B, coaching C. So pretty similar to what I said as well. Mick's a big Bengals fan. Okay. Leroy, this is one that I feel like, okay, let's see what Paul says here. Here's one I'm having a hard time with. Teams have been literally tackling and body slamming our top wide receiver on his high school team, so he can't catch the ball. They know the penalty is less than yards gained on the play, so they do it. Every time they think he's going to catch the ball, something needs to be done about that. That's kind of like a spot foul thing. Yep.
Yep. And we've talked about that in this show before.
I think, yes. I think that might have been one of my first play clock questions I ever asked you, was whether it should have been a spot foul or not.
And I'm not a big fan of it because teams will do the math and they will say, listen, I'd much rather give up
it's
15. Yeah.
We've talked about that on our games.
In the old days,
if you're beat, pull it down.
In the old days, they would just pass interference all the time on the last play of the game because you couldn't get another play afterwards. So they would just knock you down because they would take the PI, but it'd be the end of the game. That's until they added that new thing in there. Yeah.
Okay, Leroy, this question is a little bit of a setup to it, but I feel like you are a great person to ask ethical questions to. Am I correct in saying so? And I've asked you quite a bit of ethical questions over the years. So I had a center game on Saturday, and afterwards I knew I was having the Bengals game on Sunday, so I drove to my parents' house to stay there the night before so I could go to the Bengals game. The drive from Center College to my parents is about 2 hours. I got out of the game, and I'm weird about before games not wanting to eat because I don't like to. It's just one of those things. I just don't do it, so I'm hungry. I knew I was going to eat dinner when I got there as well, so I just needed a quick snack and a drink. So I'm driving, and there is a Taco Bell that is probably about 25 minutes from where Center is. So I knew I had about an hour and a half before I'd get home. Okay. So I'm pulling into the Taco Bell, and right next to the Taco Bell, there is a McDonald's. Both drive-thrus have one car in it. So I'm like, perfect. I'm just going to go to the Taco Bell because as we both know, we both like Taco Bell. I pull in the person behind me, and the person in front of me, I'm not kidding you, $50 worth of Taco Bell. $50 worth of Taco Bell. So, Leroy, I ask you, is there an amount of money that is too much for you to spend in the drive-thru that you should go in or order on the app or something? And if so, what is that amount?
I don't necessarily know if it's a dollar amount. I think it's an amount of food, right? I mean, I got a big family. My orders can get pretty. I mean, I got 6 people.
This is Taco Bell, remember?
Yeah, my orders can get pretty large. But I think $65, $70, like if I'm in that drive-thru line for longer than 10 minutes or longer than 5 minutes ordering food, no, I need to be going in. There's no reason to be spending longer than 5 minutes ordering food in the drive-thru. So I'm more of a time guy than I am a dollar amount as far as dollar amount ordering. Yeah, that's ridiculous. 4 people in the car all wanting separate orders. Forget that. No way.
And see, for me, it was one of those things that I went in because I was wanting to go quick. You know, like I literally got like, I think one taco and a Baja Blast because I'm literally like, I knew I was going to be eating a full meal later. I was literally getting a snack.
Yep. And you see them handing out bags one after the other.
Well, I could see on the drive-thru thing, and she ordered $50 worth of Taco Bell. She got like a party pack, and then it was like 5 of the 5-layer burritos and so on. And Mick's got a point here. I swear, ever since COVID, he's felt reluctant to go inside to order at fast food joints.
See, and if I can avoid going through drive-thrus, I absolutely will. I'd much rather go inside.
The app, fantastic. The app ordering is great. You pull into the queue, they bring it out to you. It's great. It's great. It's great.
Bring me my food.
Yes. No, 100%. Paul says he goes in all the time. And I'm just curious if I wasn't sure if I was right to be grumbling sitting back there.
No, you are, especially if you're only getting one thing. It's like the person that has like 40 items worth in front of you.
And luckily, I gave the Taco Bell props. Yeah. It was probably 5 minutes, so it wasn't like it was. But still, I was curious. I didn't know whether I was being old man grumbling at the cloud or not.
No, I back you on that one.
Thank you. Okay, I'm ready.
This week, after getting their hands slapped by the Big Ten, Michigan had their coach suspended only for game day. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. They were whining and throwing a fit, saying that they were going to leave the Big Ten. How dare you? We're going to leave the Big Ten. My question to you is, what SEC team could you foresee leaving the SEC in, say, the next 5-10 years? If you had to pick a team, I am too, Paul. If you had to pick a team that was going to leave the SEC, who would it be?
None of them. I mean, I guess Missouri is probably the most likely because they really don't fit in the SEC. But I mean, here's the thing, and I know that you roll your eyes every single time I say it, but the SEC is the best conference in sports. It is. It's the best conference in college athletics. It's the best conference in college football. It's the best baseball conference. It's one of the best volleyball conferences. It's just like you keep on listing as far as some of the big things that it's really, really good at. So I don't think you leave a great thing because you have a lot of it spread it out. Now, listen, if you're asking me which one I get to kick out, absolutely I'm kicking Tennessee out. But I think Mick's right in saying Missouri's the one, like if you have to make me pick, I'm picking Missouri. But right there, what Mick is saying on the screen right now is the amount of money that the SEC brings in is why no one's going to leave the SEC.
And for what it's worth, I don't think Michigan ever.
Why would they? No.
There's no ever.
Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?
Independent,
the Big 12?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're not gonna do that. It's you're just freaking silly if you're gonna say that. I guess it's time now for drivers.
Yes. Give me a second. So I am using.
Gosh, we've gone long today, Leroy. We're already.
Oh my gosh, we're already at an hour.
This is usually the point at the podcast that we are talking about our picks of the week.
Oh my goodness.
Which, Leroy, I'm very excited about a couple of the picks this week. We got some tough ones to pick. No high school games, and like Paul said here, Michigan, come on down to the SEC and get the beatdowns like you deserve. Absolutely, Michigan will learn what real football is. Okay, I can throw homeboy out here. Let's do this. Got to turn the comments off. This guy looks like he's too good of hair to be a NASCAR driver. And you can't deny it.
I hate his hair only because I'm envious of it. Only because I would love to have hair like that.
Yes. But he's not a NASCAR driver. I can tell you that. There's no shot.
Okay.
That's because he's an IndyCar driver.
Final answer?
Yes.
Yes, he is. That's Joseph Newgarden. He won the Indy 500 this year.
Okay. How you play this game too is that these
darn good race.
Mick says here, I'm surprised we haven't seen giant programs get in. Paul says that's not a real person. Christy says
AI.
That is a white version of The Rock. That's actually kind of funny. So how you play this game though is Leroy has 3 drivers, and I have to say whether it's Indy, F1, or NASCAR driver. I don't know who any of these dudes are.
He is.
He's really good, isn't he?
They had the road to Indy, and he had his shirt off, and like all the women were like, "Oh, he's so amazing."
Thanks for not using that picture. I didn't really need to see that. We've already seen enough male body parts from your computer that we don't need to see another one.
Shut up.
Are you sure that's not just some guy you picked up from the local accounting firm?
Again, we're going completely AI this week. All the pictures this week could potentially be AI.
Mick works for an accounting firm. I'm pretty sure that guy works in his firm. Like, you can't tell me that guy doesn't look like he's an accountant. Like he's or an insurance agent or something. Because that's what he's going to be doing once his NASCAR career ends.
Yes, correct. That's Tyler Reddick. NASCAR driver. Good job, Sam.
Let's see here. Okay, Paul says he's proud of you, Leroy. It's been like a month with no nudity. Yeah, and C-Mick says that's his cube neighbor. I believe it. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. John said F1. Christy said Indy. Paul agreed with me in saying NASCAR. Okay, here's our last one. Again, NASCAR would never allow a backwards hat. I think Bubba Wallace did it once, and you saw what happened.
Sam.
What? Too soon? Is that a Reebok logo on the right side of his screen there?
That is not. That is.
I was going to say.
That's his initials.
Oh. Gosh, I was going to say, I can't imagine that Reebok. Is Reebok even still a thing? Like, in all seriousness, like, when's the last time you saw anything Reebok?
I feel like Reebok's still
because like remember that they had the Zig Tech shoes that everyone had, and then obviously Reebok wasn't Reebok NFL for a long time as well. This guy's an F1 driver though.
They're still very much a thing. Their big focus now is shoes.
This guy is a F1 driver.
Yes, that's Lance Stroll. Yes, you're 3 for 3. 3 for 3 today, Sam. Good job, bud.
Look at me go. Everyone agrees in saying F1 as well with that. And Chris, you just said yes. I'm not sure what she's saying yes to, but yes, yes works. You ready for picks?
I am.
This is where we give our pick. Oh, go on.
Reebok used to do way more than just shoes, but they've switched now. They are completely just a shoe company now.
Well, I remember that they had the Zig Techs, I think is what they were called. It's probably been a little over 10 years ago.
They got kind of a weird like cross logo thing that they got on their shoes. Yeah.
Oh, yes, about Reebok, she says. So they are still a thing. Paul said he had some Allen Iverson Reeboks.
Reeboks. Oh my goodness, that's throwing it back.
Speaking of old shoes, remember Starburys?
Yeah.
Stephon Marbury's. Those were great shoes. Great shoes. Not really, but everyone had them. You could buy them from Stephen Barry's.
Yes. I got a Michigan State jacket from Stephen Barry's.
I loved going to Stephen Barry's and buying. Like, I wish Stephen Barry's was still a thing. Because, actually, it's probably a good thing because how cheap all the hats and random shirts were.
Yeah.
I would have done it. She only knows because she bought Bailey Reebok sweaters last year for Christmas. Okay, well, that makes sense as to why. How the pick contests work, though, is each week, Leroy and I will pick the high school games that we're broadcasting. For right now, we're on hiatus. For that, we'll start that back in a couple of weeks once basketball season begins. So we won't have any picks for that, and neither one of our football teams are still in. We will each pick the Kentucky game, the Northwestern game, the Western Kentucky game, the Bengals game, the Bears game, and then we will each pick 2 games apiece that the other person does not know that we are picking. Make sense?
Yep.
Sounds great. I am up 71-54 in the pick contest right now, a commanding lead, but still plenty of time as we're running this through the Super Bowl. So Leroy has plenty of time to make a comeback. So Mr. Clamola, you're going to start us off this week. Well, actually, no, I start off this. Well, no, we'll have you start off. Why not? Since I'm winning, I get to make that decision, right?
It's your show, man. I'm just along for the ride.
Kentucky travels to South Carolina on Saturday night. Kentucky travels to South Carolina looking to bounce back from a loss against Alabama last weekend. Leroy, Kentucky or South Carolina, who you got?
South Carolina.
I agree. South Carolina wins. It's not a good matchup for Kentucky, and South Carolina plays a lot better at home, and especially being under the lights. Northwestern hosts Purdue. This might be a first, Leroy.
This is a big game. This is a big game this week.
This might be a first. I'm picking Northwestern.
They're projected right now to play University of Central Florida in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl game. They will lose their mind if they win this week and get bowl eligible this week. But David Braun's their new head coach. They've gotten rid of the interim tag. I'm going to go with Northwestern also. I'm going to regret it, but I'm going to go Cats.
Leroy, Western Kentucky trying to bounce back. They host Sam Houston State on Saturday. Who you got?
Boy, the Tops really need a win, man. They've been
struggling.
absolutely struggling, and a lot of y'all don't see it because you're not on any WKU pages. Sam, I know you are. There's been a lot of talk about quarterbacks and about not being happy with our quarterback situation, because they've had some good quarterbacks over their time. You know, when you talk about Dowdy and Bailey Zappi and Mike White, and I mean they've had some good QBs. So sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. I'll go with WKU.
I agree. Sam Houston State's like 1-8. If WKU loses that, then there's going to need to be a lot of questions asked on that. I hate that I'm the first one that has to pick this. Tomorrow night, the average NFL fan gets a good Thursday night game for the first time in a couple of weeks. As the Cincinnati Bengals traveled, I mean, that's all. I mean, it's not just a shot at you all. That, well, I guess you had Bears, you had Bills and I forget who the Bills played like 2 weeks ago.
It was an awful game,
decent game. Bills Bucks, I think that's what it was. Bills Bucks. I had money in that game and actually won, so I was pretty pleased. Bengals, though, traveled to the Ravens on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. I have to pick first, and I'm picking the Ravens.
Darn it! I'll go with the Ravens.
Here, you want to know? You want to know some stats, though?
Yeah,
I'll bring you some stats that might make you change your mind. Bengals are 0-12 in their last road primetime games. Joe Burrow, though, the Bengals are 3.5-point underdogs. Joe Burrow is an underdog of 3 or more since 2021, is 12-0-1 against the spread and 10-3 straight up. Does that change your pick?
No. No. Oh, get the explicit tag up. Get the explicit tag up.
Hey, you at least it's not a phallic symbol. Like some people like to do this. Leroy, you get to pick first. Bears traveled to Detroit to take on the Lions.
If we lose by less than 30, I'll call it a win. So I'll go with the Lions.
Okay. I get to make my first pick of the week here as the leader. And I'm going to go with the biggest game of the entire weekend as John. Lions 52-3.
Yeah, good thing your opinion means nothing.
To me, the biggest game of the entire weekend, starting on Friday, because I think Bengals-Ravens is legitimately like a really big game, and that's taking my bias out, is on Monday Night Football. Another great primetime game. The Philadelphia Eagles travel to face the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night. Leroy, Eagles or Chiefs in a rematch of the Super Bowl? It is in Kansas City.
Yeah. Taylor Swift going to be there?
I got to imagine. It's Monday night. Why wouldn't she? It's going to be nationally televised.
I'll go with the Chiefs. Against my better judgment.
I told myself I was going to go with the opposite of whoever you picked.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick the Eagles, which I'm actually kind of happy with. I think it's going to be a great game, though. And literally, it's one that I think is truly a 50-50 game in that. What's your first game of the week, Leroy?
My first game of the week is in college for a game that neither of us care about. Utah heads to Arizona. Number 16, Utah takes on number 19, Arizona, in Arizona.
I'll be honest, I had no idea Arizona was even ranked.
I know.
Yeah.
I know it.
Not a clue. Go Utes.
All right, I will go Arizona.
Again, I got nothing. Mix picking Arizona with that. Okay. Leroy, I'm calling an audible.
Okay.
And I'm not adding in a college football or an NFL game into this as my second pick. And I'm calling an audible. I'm not asking your permission. I'm just making an audible, and I'm making an executive decision on this. Because there's a big game.
What are you doing?
I said Eagles-Chiefs was the biggest game of the weekend. Nope. Not even close. The Fighting Houday and the Blowfish takes on the Fighting Paul Reeveses. It is Sam's fantasy team at 7-3 taking on Paul Reeves's fantasy team at 7-3. I am projected to win 109.2. Paul is projected to has 106.2. So I'm projected to win by 3 points. We're both 7-3 in the Jungle League. Leroy, are you picking me or are you picking Paul in the big fantasy showdown? It's the biggest game of the weekend. We're not telling you our starters, John. What fun is that? Okay, you know what? I'll be nice. I'll go through our...
I just want quarterback.
I have Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Who does Paul have for quarterback?
And Paul, it is loading here. If Paul's watching, he'll be able to tell me. Jared Goff. You want to know the lineup? I'll bring you the lineup really quick. So for me, Hurts, Swift, Jerome Ford, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, Dustin Hopkins, and the Jaguars defense. For Paul, Jared Goff, Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Walker, Devontae Smith, Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid, Jalen Waddle, Money Mack, and the Dolphins defense.
How are you 7-3? No, I'm just kidding.
Our average points per week, I have 112.4. Paul has 110.4.
Oh, Malone talking about Laporta again. Go figure.
Who you got, me or Paul? I guess Paul might have logged off for the night. I'm a little disappointed that he's not talking any smack. I was surprised that he didn't come in here talking smack to begin with. You already know who I'm picking. So
yeah, I'll go with Paul simply because I know who you're going to go with.
And I'm picking myself.
Yeah, obviously.
Because who day in the blowfish?
Quite frankly, I think you got it, but I gotta gain some ground here. So,
and plus, Who Day in the Blowfish is a good name, isn't it?
Great name, love it.
What's your last pick? And I'm sorry if you don't agree with me adding that, but I felt like it was good for the pod.
I'm fine.
It's football related, right?
My hockey fantasy name is Bed Bath and Bedard.
That's pretty good.
Oh, all right. My last game is
Lagoda.
The where'd it go? I have these all listed down here. Oh, yeah. Minnesota Vikings taking on Denver Broncos.
Paul says it won't let him comment. That's so disappointing, Paul. Wait, let's see. Here he says he's messaging me now. Yeah, it says it won't let him comment. That is so disappointing. It almost makes it look like I've banned him from commenting.
I don't have a hat here to show my respect for the fallen soldier.
That is really disappointing, Paul.
Why'd you ban him, Sam?
I didn't. if I even had the, I don't know. That's so disappointing. What did you say the game was? I saw Howard is picking the Broncos.
Broncos Vikings, Sam. Broncos Vikings.
Where?
The game is in Denver. Otherwise, I wouldn't have picked it if it was in Minnesota.
See, it's usually me that likes to pick these crappy games every week. What are you doing?
I was pulling a page out of your book.
Because I get to research those and so on.
I was going to pick the Colts, but they're on bye this week.
See, I'm shocked you didn't go Steelers. You have Steelers, Browns, and then there's another one that is two hated teams for me that I felt like you were going to go with.
I've picked on you enough about the Steelers this year, man.
I'll pick the Broncos. Because this is my reasoning for picking the Broncos.
My father-in-law.
Yes. So who you picking? Vikings or Broncos?
Boy, the Vikings are beat up, aren't they? Oh my gosh. I'll go with the Vikings. Sorry, Dad.
Okay. To recap the picks of the week. Kentucky and South Carolina were both with the Gamecocks. Northwestern versus Purdue. We're both with Northwestern. We're both with Western Kentucky. We're both with the Ravens. We're both with the Lions. So we're on our traditional picks every single week. We're the same. For the separate games, I'm with the Eagles. Leroy's with the Chiefs. I'm picking myself. Leroy's picking Paul in the fantasy game. I'm picking Utah. Leroy's picking Arizona. I'm picking the Broncos. Leroy is picking the Vikings. He understands, Leroy. So you're not you're still getting a Christmas present, I guess, this year. You're not getting coal in your stocking when you see him again. John says Vikings 37-10. Wow. This might set a record for our longest podcast ever. And it wasn't one that was necessarily like predicted to be this long either.
No, this was a long show.
Any parting thoughts?
Appreciate all of you sticking with us all night long tonight, man.
Yeah, even you, Paul. That apparently you can't comment.
I can't believe you banned him, man.
Yeah, let's see. He just sent me a picture of what he sees. Yeah, it is. That is wild. It's popping up. See, it's popping up on screen here. He sent me. Says, "Let's try this again." He puts a red flag in the air and says, "This is BS."
On this post right now. Oh my gosh,
that is wild. I wonder if he commented too much in a period. I'm sorry, like in all seriousness, like it would have been almost part of like the gag that I would have banned you. Like when we were talking about you as far as the team, but I wasn't like hand on Joe Burrow. I didn't do anything there. And you know, Leroy, if I'm putting it on Joe Burrow, you know it's legit.
It's legit.
You know it's legit. We'll see you next week though. Wednesday. I assume we'll be good Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
I think we're gonna talk some college basketball, right? Next week.
Yep. Yeah, I have a meeting on Wednesday the 29th, but I'm trying to get out of it. So
who schedules meetings on From the Pressbox Day? Don't they know?
Well, and that's a whole rant in itself over a point. It's a real pointless meeting because everything that's going to be done there.
We're already an hour and 22 minutes in, so why not just have the rant online?
It's already a pointless meeting because everything that they vote on has to go to the big board to get voted on again. So I don't see the point of us covering it because we cover the main meetings that happen. So I think the whole thing's stupid anyway, but I go where my boss tells me to go. So
if he says jump, you say how high.
Unfortunately.
Should we ask you about your feelings on some of your workplaces and so on, and how you feel?
No, we shouldn't. Sam, you know my feelings on
you love everything.
I mean, I love my job. Yeah. Woo!
Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.